Whether you're a business owner, creative, entrepreneur, artist, you likely spend a lot of time and stress on your craft. How about we call it business because you earn income from your craft? Well, at some point, some of you thought about protecting your craft, specifically your brand, possibly even your social media accounts, including myself. Today, we have a special guest named Nik Sallie. She'll be joining us from Austin, Texas, where she started in the intellectual property field with Facebook, now known as Meta. In addition to earning several awards, she has protected many brands and businesses. This is our livelihood, folks. Without further ado, let's welcome Nik Sallie.
I'm Nik Sallie. I'm the managing attorney at Tastemakers Legal P LLC, which is based in Austin, Texas. And then what we focus on is helping business owners to own, protect, and profit from their IP, their intellectual property. And I do that by helping them file their trademark applications at the USPTO. So that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I deal a lot with trademark matters, and then also there's a lot of scammers online. I was at Facebook for over a decade, and during that time I worked in intellectual property operations, which is basically if you need to report alleged infringement of your trademark rights, copyrights, defamation, that kind of thing. I was one of the people who helped build out that reporting system. So I also helped write policies. I managed our contractor workforce and the quality control and like handled over 4,000 cases while I was there. So I'm pretty intimately aware of like scams online and fraud and things like that, especially on social media. And you're right, John, it doesn't make sense why people completely like copy someone else's account and then just set up an imposter account and do all these things, but it happens. And I feel like business owners don't always know how to combat that.
Yeah, or they might not even realize it's important to take care of, which having the conversation with you, I realized, yeah, now I need to do something about it.
Yes. So some of the ways I see this show up, I just mentioned um, some things that have happened, even with my clients. Usually, what we see, like for example, on Instagram, kind of the anatomy of a scam is you'll see that someone has, let's see, legitimate business owner A gets on the Instagram. They either start to get tagged in certain things by other people, or they start to get DMs from people claiming that, hey, I ordered something, but I never received it. Or, hey, I tried to download something that you sent me and like it's not working. Can you resend it to me? And the people don't realize that whoever was contacting them before was an imposter of the legitimate business owner that they're talking to now. So the business owner has no clue what's going on. They're panicked now. They feel like they have a customer or a potential customer that they want to help, but they have no idea what's going on. And now they're on the defensive. They're behind the ball because they've got to figure out where's the scam coming from. So finally, they might be able through tags or whatever to track down that other account. And they'll see that usually they have copied their username and only added maybe one letter or changed one letter or added an underscore to the end. So as to the eye, it looks like the same username, but you have to look pretty closely to see an extra I in the middle of the word or whatever. The same pictures are up, the same address and things like that are in the bio. And now they don't know what to do because they don't know who's behind it. So one of the
Mhm.
easiest things to do is to learn what reporting systems these online platforms have and to bookmark that actual contact form, because truth be told, it will move around every now and then. It gets
Mhm.
buried because there's so much in the help center or whatever. But if you bookmark that, first of all, that'll cut down the amount of time it takes for you to find those reporting channels. But two, you need to know which reporting channel to go through. A lot
Mm.
of times people will report these as imposter accounts. And really an imposter account is a copy of someone's personal profile. But usually when it's intellectual property involved, that's going to implicate someone stolen a trademark, like a picture of a trademark or some other IP to make their business look legit when they're the scammer. So
Mhm.
if your IP is involved, if there's your photographer and they've taken all your copyrighted photos and put it onto this fake account, go through the IP form and report it for IP, because you'll probably get a little bit faster answer than if you report it to like an imposter type of a reporting system or
I
contact
see.
form.
That sounds Thanks, Nick. That sounds way more specific in terms of like the reasoning for submitting a form. And thanks for that was basically answering one of my questions here. I was going to pose is that what can people do before contacting you as an attorney to protect their accounts? Because I'm sure there's like other steps that you as an attorney can help with. But yeah, just to get started on the
Yeah.
submission.
Well, I think one of the first things is mindset, to be honest. Like once you're on an online platform, you have to understand that when you make your account, you're already agreeing to certain things in the terms of service and the statement of like rights and responsibilities, which is your stuff can be shared based on your actual permissions on the platform. Like if you're on Facebook and you're publicly posting, then you're agreeing that other people can use the share button to take your content and share it somewhere else across Facebook. That's just what you've agreed to. That's a license that's built in. If you don't want that, you need to edit your sharing permissions. And on Instagram, you don't really have that option. But you can put like in your bio, official one and only account, no backup accounts, that kind of thing, or a message that says, I will never DM you, or something
Mhm.
like that that helps you
Right.
stand out. And then finally, what I was just saying about like the reporting systems. Listen, if your account becomes viral, if you're successful, you need to also understand sometimes the marker of success is that people will copy. Some of these people do not mean any harm. It's not malicious. It really is a fan account and they're reposting your content because they found it entertaining. But if it's like really tied to a business where you're selling something, goods or services, and it looks like someone's really trying to copy and trade off of your goodwill, then you need to know where these reporting channels are as quickly as possible. So I think those are kind of the self-help, self-serve methods that you can put in place. Know what contact form to use. And then the last thing I would say is do not, do not file multiple reports. It's counterintuitive, but when someone panics, they will go to the imposter contact form and fill that out. Then they'll go to the trademark one. Then they'll go to another one, a hack, the one that's about hacking or something like that. When you do that, you clog up the system and you might actually delay getting a response.
That's interesting, Nick. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Because similar to my own law firm clients for immigration, people, especially when they file on themselves, DIY, pro se, they tend to email the U.S. immigration officials multiple times, and that doesn't help, right? This is just human nature. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but good. Thanks for mentioning that. Especially when there's so many different, several different options, it may seem like okay, well, that's a different option, so you can submit that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Well, there's other hot topic in the news, but before we get there about a certain platform, so I'll reserve that for later in the show, folks. Well, now we're related to this one we just talked about is social media influencers. Is there other common or unique challenges when social media influencers, and of course they include other IP owners,
Mhm.
but challenges with the USPTO that may not appear on its face, like on a website that people need to know about?
Yeah, I would say honestly, this is industry agnostic, what I'm about to share. For anybody, honestly, that is trying to protect their brand by filing a trademark application with the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office. First of all, what that gets you if you get a registration is you get protection over your brand nationwide versus common law or state law. You're just getting protection over your trademark in the state that you're using it in with your goods and services. Um, I don't think people actually realize how long it takes to get a trademark registration. They think it's like some overnight thing or it's going to take 1 to 2 weeks. No, at this point in time, it's taking about 12 to 18 months minimum from the time that you file and submit your application to the USPTO to the time that they tell you it's registered. As of this recording in April, they're just now looking at applications that were filed last June and July.
Oh my.
So it's not
Okay.
a quick process by any means. It's shorter than patents, I think, getting a patent, but it still does take time. And so the sooner you get your application in, the better it is for you as far as getting your application in the queue so that you can start that timeline of it at some point getting picked up and starting to
Right.
be looked at.
Right, which this is a good time to mention. Full disclosure for any of the folks in the audience in the community here, Nick is a resource, a partner with us. Her law firm is helping us with a trademark filing, And so her and her team have a great customer service follow up because I've been a little slow to reply and get the answers that she needs. Her team needs to get this thing filed. So now that you mentioned the long timing, you're gonna get the answers from me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I've heard about that long delay, and then there's something like what do you call that? Classifications or category that people
Yeah,
might not be familiar about.
this is not the same as just filling out a business form when you're forming your business entity with the state of Texas or wherever. It's not the same as getting your LLC or your corporation, that kind of thing. There's more information that's involved, and there's certain dates that you need to know of. But one of the two biggest things that I see that people need to understand when they're going into the trademark process is, what are your actual goods and services? Like, what are you actually selling? And if you're not selling it yet, then yes, there's a special kind of application we can file for you. But if you are selling these items, how are you describing them? Because we have to match it up to description at the USPTO when we put it on the application. And then two, what date did you start selling that stuff? What's the actual date that you
Mhm.
first mentioned it to anyone, and what's the first date you started offering it for sale? Those are important dates, and I know a lot of people, they don't know to notate that, but then we have to sit together and they have to go back through emails and they have to go through social media and try to see, well, what's the first time I actually posted about my business, and when's the first time I actually had the add to cart, the cart was open and people could actually start buying things. Those are important items to know that you have to have on the application.
Yeah, that's what do we call that? Tracing back?
Yeah.
That'd be a long time tracing back for sure. Yeah, so that's I know you asked me that question. So yeah, I know that a lot of social media influencers, there's a conference that they're out there, so shout out to them, not sponsored by them, but or vice versa, but social media world conference, I believe. So it's
Hmm.
a lot of influencers out there that you may want to consider reaching out to them, or I can connect you. But
Yes, I would love to be connected. Another influencer issue that I do see, because I have some friends who are influencers, they're TikTok influencers, and I actually met them through TikTok and we became friends. One of the things that I'm really fascinated by and interested with is more on the contract side, where these influencers really often receive lowball offers, especially if they are a person of color. And a lot of companies who are big time brands and have budget will actually offer them free product instead of paying them money,
yeah,
even though they have the a reasonable social media following. They have a lot of engagement. They have the stats, the data to back up why they would be a great media partner to go with. But they just continue to get these lowball offers. And I would really love to be able to like have a master class or something where I teach them how to negotiate, but also how to leverage IP. If you have a trademark registration and your brand is protected, it legitimizes your business and you are the business as the influencer, where I think it would help them to leverage that IP and be able to say, you know what, my brand is here, therefore I need to be compensated at this level as well. And some of these influencers have actually sent me these contracts so that I could take a look at what's being offered. And it's not surprising anymore, sadly, but it is very much kind of a industry standard where they people don't want to compensate the influencer. So I think IP and trademarks would be a great way for them to figure out a way to demand the compensation they
yeah.
deserve.
I'm glad you mentioned that because yeah, that's something that it's like it goes full circle, right? And to protect you, not just because some people might think, well, why do I have to protect their mark or their name? Well, this is a really great example because you can show that value of your company or your personal name.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, I think I should probably take just a few seconds to explain what a trademark is so
Sure.
that people can kind of get grounded and anchor into that definition. A lot of people get confused between copyright law and trademark law. So, a trademark is any word, name, phrase, or logo, graphic, or a combination of those things that serves as a source identifier, and it helps people to distinguish one company's goods or services from another company's. So, for example, trademark law is totally about preventing consumer confusion. So, if you go into Delta faucets to pick up some, a new faucet or a sink for your home, you're never going to be confused about whether or not you can buy a plane ticket there. And
Right.
that's why it's okay to have Delta Airlines and Delta faucets. That's two different goods and services. But if ever you see someone, for another brand, they are calling themselves, I don't know, Apple, but an S on the end, apples for electronics and computers and or whatever, that's a big no-no.
Hmm.
That's trying to cause confusion in the marketplace by having just one letter of, for a visual difference. And we know that's going to be visually confusing. If it was Apple for something completely different, maybe it would go through. Apple for, I don't know, coffee mugs or something like that.
Right.
That's
Right.
nothing close to a laptop or any other electronics.
Right.
But that's what a trademark is. It's like a little suitcase. As soon as you see it, it opens up and there's a lot of information that it gives you about price point, experience, and things like that. So,
You brought that up, and the first thing application I thought of, I think it happened maybe at least 2 years ago. Bucky's.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I recall, it was like another brand of a gas station, so similar
Oh,
industry, but the logo is actually different. It was a different animal, different mascot.
but
So
the same word,
no, different company name. But
different
I think
company.
they got him on something like similar, like playful or something. I didn't recall reading the entire opinion, but it was just, yeah, not the same animal and not the same company name. So that was quite interesting.
Yes, but there must have been some point of confusion. There must have
Right.
been something that happened in the marketplace where people were thinking they were going to one website, but really on someone else's, and that kind of thing. So that's interesting. That's a very interesting case.
Yeah. So now, there's people out there like with any legal services, people are like, oh, I can do it myself. I can do this. Seems pretty simple. You addressed some of that earlier, but what are some? Do you have any other like, to your knowledge, any other common misconceptions on why people might not file for protection?
Yes. So I definitely want to be empathetic here because I'm a business owner myself, so are you. And I think when we're just starting out, we're wearing all the hats. We're, dealing with trying to know our numbers and our financials. We're doing the marketing. We're also trying to expand, so possibly hiring contractors. There's so many things going on. And one of the things I think business owners make a mistake about is they don't actually consider trademarks earlier in their journey. um, I will tell you that there is a timing aspect to this. And I don't think that people need to go after a trademark in their first 6 months of business. I don't think they need to file then. But once they've actually had an MVP, a minimally viable product,
Mhm.
they've gotten some sales under their belt, they know that their branding is going to stay. Um, then that's the time that they need to start doing the trademark. So that could be a year later or something like that. So the first year of business. But I think the mistake is that people, one, they don't know what they don't know. And
Right.
two, they're so inundated with other information around the business that they don't think that intellectual property or trademarks is important. And it is actually critical. As you
Right.
get further down the line, your trademark actually could become another revenue driver for you if you're going to franchise, which is just another way of saying licensing.
Right.
And to do that, you really should have a trademark registration, a federal trademark registration, meaning you file that application with the USPTO and got a registration from the USPTO. I think that's kind of the misnomer. Is like, oh, I can just leave that to later. Or, I don't have to worry about that. I don't need to do that right now. And it's more of a thing of when this is actually a viable product and your branding is done and you're set on what you're going to have as your logo and all of that, you need to contact the trademark attorney and
Yeah.
get this filed.
And Nick, if I can offer to the audience here is that, I'm in issues. Like I should have done this 12 years ago, right? I have new brands now, but I should have done this 12 years ago. And yeah, to any business owner out there or entrepreneur, I highly recommend at least filing for one classification at the very least, so you can get that on file. Um, and Nick, is there one thing at least that people can do as they're preparing the application or verifying that this is the brand they're going to go move forward with? Isn't there some kind of mark that they can put like, correct me if I'm wrong, can they put the TM mark on it? So it's just as evidence that they're claiming it, but they haven't filed quite yet?
Yeah, there's a couple of different indicators, and like that you can put people on notice about your rights. So there's a couple of different categories. So trademark is kind of the broad term,
That's right,
but
yes.
within trademarks, there's a trademark. There's also a service mark. So trademark can go towards people, businesses who are selling goods. A service mark will go towards those businesses who are offering services. And then there's some other things that we won't get into at this time. But
Sure, yeah.
before you get a registration, you can always put the TM or a SM next to your trademark name as a subscript or superscript on your website, your blog, your business cards, whatever it might be, to basically say, I'm using this as my trademark. And then only when you actually receive your federal registration can you change that to a circle R. The circle R is literally the designation that lets people know this trademark is registered. It is
Mhm.
federally registered, and we're putting you on notice of the rights, the broad rights now that this brand has in all 50 states.
I'm smiling because I just can't wait until at least 12 months later that I can do that through you.
I cannot wait to deliver the certificate to you and say, "Hey, you can change that
Time
over."
time to put it on. Well, Nick, we just have at least one more question here. It's good. It's a good timing that we have this conversation actually, for this recording, because recently President Biden signed the TikTok ban bill into law, and I have my own commentary on it, but I'd like to get your opinion on you know how this how this can affect other influencers, I suppose. Your perspective as a attorney.
Yes, I mean, to be honest with you, my perspective is going to span a little bit more on the personal side of things as well, because I think that the platform you're providing is really great, and so I think it's okay to like mention that here. But for me, TikTok has been a really great place to just learn. A lot of people call it TikTok University. There's so many things that I've learned, whether they were not super important things, but other things that were critical as far as community building, as far as seeing kind of issues dealing with injustice and how people were galvanizing around a cause and coming together to try to right a wrong. Um, I I think people need to understand that when something is a law, one, it's not always a moral thing. Like slavery was legal back in the day, that kind of thing.
Right.
And also, there's a timing issue. Even if TikTok is banned, I think people need to understand why, because what we're being told as to why, what the reasoning is behind the ban, I think you have to look beyond that and try to read between the lines. And you'll find out a lot of that information on TikTok itself, what
Yeah.
the other deeper reasons could be for that. I also think that people need to prepare to shift to other platforms. Whether that's a YouTube because it's an American company or whatever. But I think there always needs to be a backup plan. I think people need to, instead of being afraid, they need to prepare. But the other thing is, I don't think that it will go away right away just because it's signed into law. Um, there's usually going to be some timeline of some kind of winding down or something like that. So I don't think it will go away immediately, but I do think that what people need to have in mind, or as far as a mindset shift, is what did you enjoy about TikTok? If it does go away, where do you want to continue educating yourself and continue building community? And then also, what are you going to do with this time where supposedly it's going to go away? Because I just don't know that that's actually going to happen. Even if there's this law in place, there's the law, and then there's
Right.
kind of real world context of how people interact with intellectual property, how they interact with the law, and how they interact with like real life problems in solving that. So it's interesting. I think we're all going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Nick, on I hope everyone can read between the lines and do that research, but to have more context. There is some information that seems a little suspicious, but I can one thing say, if there was truly a concern about national security, which is absolutely important, especially in both of our fields of practice. But I would think that that ban would have been effective, like the separation or
Mm.
the disband per se, right now, right? But they had that lead time. I think when they drafted it was 6 months, and now I think it's a year, but I could be wrong. But yeah,
It
like
increased. It did increase. I think you're right. I think it went from 6 months to a year.
yeah, but that, if anything, for the other influencers out there, that gives you some lead time to maybe pivot, just in case. I've noticed some others have mentioned on their own live shows, whatnot.
Mhm.
I'm starting to, find ways to collect people's emails so we can have a marketing campaign in the traditional way, and maybe in a webinar um,
Yeah.
content, or whatever you call it.
I think if anything, TikTok has taught us that it is important for us to stay in community with each other, to stay in some kind of contact and connection. I think we probably learned that over the pandemic as well. Like we need to basically continue being able to contact each other, communicate, speak about ideas, even not these really difficult topics, to continue to have proximity to each other and therefore have empathy. So we will see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see, Nick. Well, of course, most important question is how can people, once they're interested in your services or just to learn about your services more in depth, what is the best way to the ways to contact you?
Yeah, I love this question, as simple as it is, but it gives me a chance to basically give the caveat that I am also doing a rebrand. So I have several brands myself. There's Nik Sallie. That's my personal brand, and then there's Tastemakers Legal PLLC, which is a trademark law firm, and then finally there is Malachite and Moon Consultancy, which is my other firm. And so just a little bit about those. They all have different social media, and some of them have no social media. So I just don't want you to be surprised if you look me up and there's three different companies. But if you want to just connect with me on a personal level at Nik Sallie, where I'm talking about lifestyle, luxury, travel, food, culture, that kind of stuff, and spirituality, I'm on Instagram at Nik Sallie, Niksallie. I'm also on like LinkedIn at Nik Sallie, if you just want to connect there, if that's easier for you. And then for Tastemakers Legal, if you have trademark questions, you can always connect on Instagram at Tastemakers Legal. And then the website is tastemakerslegal.com. And I do have free resources there for business owners. I have a free trademark readiness quiz that my team and I have built, which helps you to get ready to file your application. So over the years, I've gotten so many questions about what needs to be done before the filing. And now that quiz will take you through each of those pieces. And if you're not ready, you'll basically get connected to some resources to help you get ready. And if you are, you'll be invited to get on my calendar to do an intake call with me and my team. And then finally, with Malachite and Moon, we do personal branding, we do business consulting, and we also do business tarot. That's right. I do trademarks and tarot. So don't be surprised. I am a spiritual lawyer. And then also, I am focusing on helping professional women to have some kind of guidance and support so that they navigate life transitions easily and with confidence. So that includes helping women who are um, leaving or going back to corporate, women who have gone through divorce, and women who have actually maybe they're deconstructing from a religious belief or something like that. Our firm also basically helps them transition and become, I would say, just more comfortable with who they are as they transition into their highest self. So that's what we do at Malachite and Moon. And that's at malachiteandmoon.com as well. So that's where you can find me. Those are all my socials. And hopefully, yeah, we'll get connected. Tastemakers Legal's on TikTok as well. So,
Okay, yeah. Well, I need
yeah.
to follow your channel then. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I'll make sure on the description box that our team puts all your links and ways to contact you down on the below, so y'all can schedule a meeting or just review Nick's information.
Perfect. I would love to connect with people, whether you want to file a trademark application or you want to do a DIY workshop where I teach you how to file your own trademark application. I'm here to help and here to serve and support small businesses.
Well, thanks so much. I knew we were in a similar wavelength on the same page because we're all, being on these social media platforms. It's basically like its own full-time job. So but at the end of the day, we're here to share knowledge, right? That's very important. So thanks so much for your time, Nick.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.